Hello, Days Our Lives fans. This is for Wednesday, April 16th. Please like, subscribe, and share. Okay, so we left off with JJ was telling Gabby she's one of the suspects. She can't believe it. She said, I can't believe you think I would kill EJ. And it reminds her about how he caught her with the gun. She almost killed him before. And if he hadn't have been there. And he said, okay, well, just answer me this then. What is your alibi? Where were you that night? And she said, well, I worked late, and when I came home from work, I just went home after work. And he said, I came by your house, you weren't there. She said, was the house dark? He said, yeah. She said, oh, I was asleep. I came home from work and I was asleep. And he said, that Gabby, you're lying. You're calling me a liar. They got into it really bad. Well, here we are with Kristin. Yesterday, she pulled the gun on Zander. He's like, Kristin, what do you think you're doing? And she tells him to go over to the phone and call Xing Wang, or whatever the hell his name is, and tell him she's the new CEO and he doesn't want any part of the deal. He picked up the phone, then he put it down, and he says, I'm not going to do it. And she's like, well, he's like, you're not going to shoot me. And she said, I've got nothing to lose. And he said, what about Rachel, Kristin? Do you really want Rachel to be without a mother? And she said, no, you're right. And she told him they could be partners, and he handed her a little name tag that was on the desk and said, get out, Kristin. After the stunt you just pulled, I wouldn't have any kind of dealings with you. Maggie comes home from visiting, I forget who, and she's hugging Philip, congratulating him on taking over Tamara, how proud his dad would be. And he said, oh, I've got something to tell you. And then in walks everybody's nightmare, Vivian. And she tells Philip, by the time I come downstairs, she needs to be gone. So Philip tells her she's going to have to go. He's going to put her in a hotel, and it's not a big deal. She's like, well, I still want my share of the money. And I mean half. I didn't agree to half of half. And he's like, fine, I'll get it to you. Meanwhile, you can go in the hotel. But she ends up going to Zander, which is how it went off today. She was staying in his office. So I don't know if she rats Philip out or whatever. She's screwing herself. So Sami comes into the pub for some morning coffee, and she's still got the afterglow of her night with Rafester. Of course, she's getting ready to go back to Italy. I thought she was hanging around later, but she's going to be leaving and then coming back in June when they have John's funeral. Anyway, they have a lot of girl talk, and they have the most mature conversation I've ever saw between these two ladies. And she's like, well, I thought you were holding it against us about Johnny because you didn't come here last night. So where did you stay? She said, I stayed at Rafe's. And they had a long conversation about that. But she didn't tell her what they did, I don't think. So Rafe does go meet Jada, even though he didn't answer her text. And she said, oh, you're here. And he said, obviously. And she tells him, he tells her, I know you're still sleeping with him. And she tells him, yeah, she did spend the night, but she slept on the couch. That's why her blouse was there. Her and Sean didn't do anything but that one time. That's all there is to it. And he's like, gosh, I'm sorry, Jada. And she said, you're sorry for what? And he said, I'm really sorry, but you'll be able to understand this. I wasn't thinking straight. Sami came over, and she's like, Sami, your ex-wife? And he's like, yeah. She was in a bad place, and I was in a bad place. And she said, and what? And what, Rafe? And he said, we slept together. And she didn't take it as well as she expected Rafe to take it, about her sleeping with Sean. But too bad, Jada. I'm glad she's out of it. That's a wrap.